Florida Keys, Isla Morada, mile marker 83. We are open daily from 10 to 5. Everyone in Monroe County wears masks, but we've got a great exhibit, great mobile scavenger hunt, and actually last weekend we had a great William Beebe Otis Barton anniversary of the bathysphere descending to 1/4 of a mile underwater. We had a great book reading that Linnea did with the kids, and then we had a special scavenger hunt at the museum. Next month, we're going to focus on lights and sounds and celebration of the Alligator Lighthouse Swim, which actually has just been canceled for the year, but we're still going to talk about some of the great things that that organization is doing. Tonight's presentation, thank you, the Surgery Center in Cleveland, Ohio. Some of their members serve on our board, and our founders are from Cleveland, Ohio. So we appreciate their sponsorship for you, Cynthia, and for tonight's Immerse Yourself program. Next month, we're going to have John Hazelbaker is going to talk about the cachalot, which is the first saturation diving chamber that was used in commercial diving at the Smith Mountain Dam. It was a huge breakthrough. It saved hours, and actually it saved months worth of time by being able to saturate divers and have them go down in different working groups to work on the turbines in the dam. And anyway, we're going to find out about that next month. But this month, we are also part of the Blue Star military program. So for those of you that don't know, from Armed Services Day to Labor Day, the Blue Star program has over 2,000 museums that participate. Active military at the museum here is always free, but then during Blue Star, up to 5 family members are free. And unfortunately, due to COVID, the National Endowments of the Arts had to put the program on hold, but we had a sponsor, one of our members, Liz Bonus, sponsored the program so that we could have it this year. So up to Labor Day, let all your military friends know, active military and up to 5 of their immediate family members are free through the History of Diving Museum. So Labor Day is around the corner, but come on in and enjoy that program. So tonight, we have Cynthia, who happened upon the museum on one of her research trips down to Key West, investigating, writing her book, letting us know about her father, and then we were real excited to get her Quiet Strong book, which we'll be talking about tonight. I'm sure you have other family members who are on tonight who actually came to the museum with you, and it was an honor to meet you, to hear about your dad, the great things that he did, the breakthroughs, and then add that to our military touch screen, have your book in the store, and we look forward to hearing from you tonight and getting some more information. So I think Emily's going to give us the what fors and all the information on technology, which is beyond my area of expertise. So I will hand it off to you, Emily, and enjoy the program, everybody.
Okay, everybody. My name's Emily. For those who don't know, I'm the Community Outreach Coordinator. And just a little bit of general housekeeping for Immerse Yourself. I am asking everyone, if you haven't already, turn off your mics and cameras. Just kind of keeps things a little bit more consistent and everything. And then if anyone does have any questions, we will be answering them at the end of the presentation. And the easiest way to ask questions is to send them in the chat directly to me, and then I will field them to Cynthia at the end of the presentation. So at any point in time, if something pops into your head, let me know and we'll go from there, and at the end I'll ask that question. So that's really the basics of housekeeping. Now I'm going to pass it on to our wonderful speaker, and she's going to do a little bit of introduction, and then we will get started with that. So without further ado, you are up, Cynthia.
Thank you, Emily. First of all, I would like to thank Lisa, Emily, and the staff at History of Diving Museum for this wonderful opportunity to come and share my father's leadership skills and historic contributions to the Navy with you all. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I see my cousin Simone I see so many of you that I love so dearly. And to all those that I don't know, I appreciate your interest in the history of my father. And this is going to be a fun time, an exciting time. And I want you all to sit back and enjoy. Now, tonight's presentation is going to be given in 3 parts. First, we will have a news clip of the facility dedication that was done in honor of my father at Fort Story, Virginia Beach at the Explosive Ordnance Disposal Training and Evaluation Unit 2. And after the news clip, I will be doing a PowerPoint presentation.
Oh, Cynthia, we got you. We lost your voice, Cynthia.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wait, now you're back.
Okay. After the PowerPoint presentation, we will close out with a video of that building dedication. If you've never been to a federal building or federal facility dedication, and you get the chance to, you really should. It's a very traditional ceremony, very patriotic, and it was just a wonderful day. So we'll close out with that. After that, the floor is going to be open for questions and answers, and I will do my best to answer every question, but if I do not know the answer, I will research it. Research is one of my specialties. I love research. I will research it and get back with you, get the answer back with you, and it won't be a long time. So without further ado, we're going to start with the news clip.
Okay, let me open that up for everyone. Okay.
Emily, I can't hear the volume.
You can't hear the volume? Let me see what we've got here. That's a new problem. No sound. Bear with me, everyone, for just a moment. The technical difficulties. Let's see. Same system.
I may be able to play it from my computer if you can't.
It's possible. Oh, here we go. Let's try this.
His daughters were present today, accepting the honor with tears of gratitude.
Man, I know my mother and father and brother are looking down on us right now, and they're smiling. So, you know, that's just what my tears are about today.
Tears of joy flowed out of Laurie Byrd Peel as the Navy honors her father, Master Chief Sherman Byrd, the first African-American explosive ordnance disposal technician.
Not only is he making history, but I'm a part of that history.
He accomplishes more for his race than people normally are accustomed to hearing about.
Family and friends gathered for the ceremony, which included the dedication of this plaque. It will forever be in front of the EOD building at Fort Story, which will be renamed after Sherman Byrd.
I have so much gratitude. He gave me so much strength.
EOD community is a rare breed of individual. Their job is so dangerous and so secretive.
But in spite of the danger, daughter Yolanda Blunt says her father remained committed to his country.
No matter how difficult the time, he persevered, and he never gave up trying.
She's proud that he sacrificed so much for the country, but says it's his dedication to the family that will inspire her and the future generation.
And I just hope that his grandchildren and great-grandchildren will look at this day and realize that they can do whatever they set their hearts to do.
Byrd died in 1971. He suffered a heart attack during an EOD training exercise at Fort Story. He was only 40 years old. Reporting live with the latest, Sela Kim, 13 News.
Okay. All right, back to you, Cynthia. So now we're ready to start the PowerPoint.
Okay, thank you. Master Chief Boatswain's mate Sherman Byrd was born in Carrollton, Mississippi on September 7th, 1930. His parents, Lloyd and Annie Lloyd Keyes, were sharecroppers. They picked cotton for a living. During this time, Jim Crow laws were in effect. And in essence, Jim Crow laws was a group of legislation that restricted African Americans, Negroes, from having certain privileges that were common to other whites in the community. Now, some of you are probably familiar with some of the Jim Crow laws. We read about it in our history. We talk about it in school, in high school, in junior high school. We learned about it. And some of those that you're familiar with is that blacks and whites could not swim in the same pool. They could not attend the same schools. They could not use the same restrooms or water fountains. But today I would like to share with you some of the Jim Crow laws that you may not be aware of. One, a Negro could not be addressed as sir or ma'am. If an 8-year-old child was talking to a 50-year-old adult, they would say things like, "Come here, boy, fetch that girl." It was very belittling and demeaning, but this was backed by the police in the area. It was taught, it was passed from generation to generation. Another Jim Crow law was that Negroes could not congregate in groups of more than 3 if they were in public. So a lot of times this was supposed to cut down on them scheming or planning things against white people. And lastly, I would like to share with you that it was against the law to shake a Negro's hand. So you can see that all of these laws were designed to keep Negroes in a type of subservient attitude or mindset. And it was a very harsh law. Sherman Byrd joined the Navy in 1947 at the age of 17. And I'd like to share with you a couple of things that were going on in 1947. Well, as you know, World War II had ended in 1945. So in 1947, you had this mass exodus of people out of the military. The Navy was about to lose 200,000 enlistments. Man, that's a huge number. That's a huge problem for the Navy. So all of the higher ups got together and they developed a plan to address this problem. So they came up with this plan. They were going to need to recruit 13,000 people per month to replace this mass exodus. Let me tell you why this is so important for you to know. Because today, in the Navy, some statistics I'd like to share with you. And in the year 2017, the fiscal year 2017, the recruitment goal for the Navy was 45,500 people. The same for 2018. So you can see the vast difference in having to recruit 200,000 versus 45,000. So because of this problem, it called for some out of the box thinking. Now, typically, Negroes, and I'm using Negroes, the colloquialism of that day. And also, as I research my father's records, I'm trying to use the words that were on his papers, his naval papers at that time. So at that time, they were using the word Negro. So at this time, as they were trying to recruit all of these people, they had to start thinking out of the box. And that's why diversity and inclusion is so important, because when you have new problems, you're going to have to use some new ideas. And you can get new ideas when you have various cultures and ethnicities at the table. You know, you can get an influx of new ideas. And so they had a huge problem. So the recruiter that recruited my father was thinking out of the box. Typically, Negroes joined the Army because the Army at this time, they didn't require that you know how to read and write. And so many of our young Negroes at this time did not go to school because they had to work in the fields to earn money to sustain the family. It took an effort of the whole family to sustain from one year to another. So this recruiter had the bright idea, well, you know what? Since the Navy has this requirement that you have to read and write in order to join the Navy, I'm going to go to the Negro high schools and recruit. Not many people were doing that, but he did. And so this is how my father came to join the Navy at the age of 17. A recruiter came to the high school and recruited him. You know, it was hard. It was hard when my father joined the Navy. The Navy was still segregated at this time. He went to boot camp out in San Diego, California. And in boot camp there, they had separate barracks, even when they were doing their drills, their physical fitness drills. When they went on the field, they would have the Negroes at one end of the field and the white people at the other end of the field. So when he joined in 1947, the Navy was segregated. It wasn't integrated until the next year in 1948. My father did well in the Navy. He progressed in and was advanced in rate to BM2. And as his rate was a boatswain's mate, and that was a problem in itself. Let me explain this to you. You know, a boatswain's mate is a supervisor. They lead deck crews and painting and maintenance of the ship. They had small boat crews. They are the security on the ship. So here you have a Black man that's going to tell a white man what to do. Now, this was really unheard of during this time, and it was a problem. So when he first got on the ships, a lot of the other enlisted personnel did not want to train him because they weren't going to have this. They weren't going to have a Black man telling them what to do. So, of course, you know, it's up to the supervisors, and at this point in time, it was the chief. You know, prior to 1958, the highest rate in the enlisted rank was chief. So it was up to the chief to correct the misguided attitude of his crew. And they quickly corrected that, where they made sure that my father was receiving the training that he needed, because the weakest link on a ship is the one that doesn't know how to do his job. So you had to ensure that everybody knew and were skilled at their rate. And my dad was a boatswain's mate. So when it came to diving, the diving field was lily white. There was not any African Americans in the deep sea diving field. My father was the first. He was the first deep sea diver. He completed deep sea diving school in 1955. And I'm gonna park here for a minute to explain to some people, there are some people who have not been in the military that are listening, and they're not familiar with some of the terminology that I'm using, but let me explain this to you. There are various flavors of divers. You have the deep sea divers that go deeper than 36 feet into the water. You have salvage divers that kind of mingle around between the surface and down to 30 or so feet. Then you have scuba divers that use the tanks and the oxygen. And so there are various flavors of divers. So my father was the first African-American deep sea diver. And just for information purposes only, a lot of people will say, well, you know, I thought Carl Bashir was the first deep sea diver from the movie Men of Honor. And I'd like to explain to you the situation with that. The deep sea diver rate may start off at, you know, saturation diver, second class diver, first class diver, and then it goes to master diver. Carl Bashir was the first African American to go to the rate of master diver in that field. My father was the first Black deep sea diver, but after 3 years, he switched and pursued explosive ordnance disposal. So that's the difference. So there is no area of falseness in that. And I really appreciate all that Carl Bashir did for the Navy. And he was also the first amputee diver in the Navy, which is an honor. But anyway, back to deep sea diving. So my father was breaking barriers, you know, his whole time in the military. So just to show you the tension that was going on in 1955, I'm going to share with you some other things that happened in 1955. Now, just imagine this. My father entered deep sea diving school in 1954 and graduated in April of 1955, 6 months later. In August of 1955, Emmett Till, a 14-year-old Negro boy, was lynched in Money, Mississippi. The same year my dad was going through this diving school. And he was lynched in Money, Mississippi, which was approximately 28 miles from where my father grew up in Carrollton, Mississippi. I'm mentioning this to you so you can understand the intense nature of the bigotry and hatred and racism that was going on at that time. Also, in December of 1955, that's the month that Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat in Montgomery, Alabama on the bus, and at the beginning of the bus boycott in Montgomery, Alabama, which is the state right next over from Mississippi. So you can see this was hard times, but my father persevered and he went through. Not only did he pass every course that he took in the military, it wasn't like he was in last place. He was number 7 out of 17 in this deep sea diving class, and the same type of averages in his other courses too. It wasn't like he was dead last. He was a very smart man, very smart man. This is my favorite picture in the whole PowerPoint presentation because there's so much history in this picture. But what we have here is, after my father was in deep sea diving school for 3 years, he made the decision to volunteer to become an explosive ordnance disposal technician. They were called divers back then, but he made a decision to go into EOD. But a prerequisite for going into EOD was to attend this NAV school underwater swimmers class. So it's very historic that you're seeing this underwater swimmers class, because that's what it was called before they started calling it scuba diving class. So scuba, the SCUBA, stands for self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. And that's what we see so much of today with the divers with the tank on their back and the mouthpiece in their mouth. But what I love about this picture so much, and I have submitted this picture to the Smithsonian Museum of African American Studies, the African American Museum at the Smithsonian, because this is one of the few pictures that show deep sea divers, Navy SEALs, and EOD divers together in the same class. And this class was located in fabulous Key West, Florida, where the History of Diving Museum is located. So the military base is still there, but the school is no longer there. The school now is in Pensacola, Florida. If you ever get a chance to visit the diving school out there, it's just amazing, amazing to see. But another thing I love about this picture is I was born in 1957 while my dad was in this class. So I really love this picture, and it's so clear. Even though it's so old, it is just really clear. All divers are on a volunteer basis. You know, you can't draft somebody to be a diver. An officer can't command an enlisted person to be a diver. All divers have enlisted personnel and officers. So my father volunteered to go to deep sea diving school. He volunteered to attend scuba diving school. He volunteered to attend explosive ordnance disposal school. And this is his graduating class. And I'm assessing this myself, you know, but as I look at this picture, to me, it says that he was accepted among his peers. Because normally, we're talking 1958, y'all. Normally, if a Black was in a picture, they would be situated in the back, in the corner, in the dark, in the booth. They would not be the center of the picture. So I personally believe that his peers were saying in this picture, we have accepted him as a brother. We know the diving community is a community of brotherhood, and especially in EOD, because you have to trust a person to the utmost to be able to be in the same vicinity with them when they're disarming a bomb. So that's what this picture says to me, that he was a brother. Another important thing about this picture is, you know, EOD is the only joint service badge. The EOD emblem is the same in the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, and the Marines. It's the only badge that's like that. And even in this picture in 1958, you see two Air Force people in the picture. They train together. They work like, if you ever seen two gears in motion where it's in like a wheel and they fit in between the grooves of one another. They train and they train and they train where they have to work together seamlessly. You know, one of the reasons that I named the book Quiet Strong is several reasons I named the book Quiet Strong. But one of the reasons I named it Quiet Strong is because the divers in the EOD community, they don't say many words to one another. One, if you're a Navy explosive ordnance disposal technician or diver, you're the only armed force field that works underwater. You won't find the Marines disarming bombs underwater or the Air Force. It's just the Navy. And when they're underwater, they have to communicate with hand signals, this, that, and other. So you know that they have to be so in tune with one another that they can effectively communicate without talking. Another reason I named the book Quiet Strong was my father was a quiet person just naturally. It started when he was really young. My father had a gap in the middle of his tooth, a pretty wide gap in between his front two teeth. And as he was growing up, he used to be very conscious of that because the other little boys would joke him a lot about the gap in his tooth. So he didn't talk a lot. It wasn't until he was about 12 or 13 and his older sister, he only had one sister, his older sister explained to him how the girls just loved his dimples. He had two deep dimples on the side. And they were always coming to his sister saying, "Oh, where is Sherman? Where is Sherman?" They loved those dimples. And he realized that the smiling was attracting the girls. So he smiled more often, he talked more often after that. But that's another reason I named the book Quiet Strong, because he was just naturally quiet. And then EOD technicians are called quiet professionals. That's what they're called, quiet professionals. And the last ingredient in that is United States Navy chiefs are called silent professionals. So you put all of that together, and I was able to describe my father as being quiet strong because he held all of those things. This is the filed anchor of the Chief Petty Officer of the United States Navy. And I put this in here because it's important for us to know that the Navy Chief is the backbone of the United States Navy. The Navy Chief is the middleman in between the Navy officer and the enlisted personnel. It is his job to do several things. And the things that he's required to do is symbolized in this anchor. We all probably know someone that is a Navy chief, either an aunt or an uncle, a cousin or a friend. When we see this anchor on their hats or on their collar, we may think that that USN stands for United States Navy, but it doesn't. I put this slide in here because I wanted to share with you some of the things that this filed anchor means. The U stands for unity. It is the Navy Chief's job to keep the communication flow between the officer and the enlisted running smoothly. The officer develops a strategy and a plan for the Navy to go into. He relays that to the chief. The chief makes sure it's executed through the enlisted personnel. So the chief is that middleman that keeps that flow going. He also has to care for the needs of the enlisted person. He makes sure they eat. He makes sure they're trained. He makes sure they're healthy. He makes sure they're paid. He assists in the evaluation of their work. The S stands for service. All Navy chiefs have made a commitment to serve God and their fellow man along with their fellow chiefs. Service is a middle name for a chief. Service, service, service to the officers, service to the enlisted. The N stands for navigation. Each Navy chief has committed to be steadfast in faith. They're going to keep themselves on course. They believe that it's God's purpose for their life to be chiefs. They believe that they were destined to be chiefs. And with the help of God, they can be a good one. So they know their purpose, they know what they're supposed to do, and they execute it very well. My father continued to advance in his career. And this is a picture of him at the Explosive Ordnance Disposal Training and Evaluation Unit 2 in Fort Story, the same facility that was dedicated in his honor. So it's a very interesting story about this lobster. If you look at the lobster, that lobster's arms is down to his knees. Now, you know that's a big lobster. Well, this is the story behind the picture. Well, they were doing a physical training exercises, and my father the team had gone out for a swim. And let me tell you, the physical training for an EOD technician or a Navy SEAL is exponentially harder than an enlisted person. But they had gone out for a swim, and this lobster attached to the tank on my father's back. And no matter how he reached, he couldn't quite get it off. Well, there was a danger in this because, you know, lobsters have claws and you don't want the lobster to cut your hose or claw into your hose. So he had to surface, and it's a young man on the other side of him that removed that lobster. So the way the story goes is 3 EOD technicians ate very well for lunch that day. They cooked that lobster. they enjoyed it immensely. You know, I was talking to you about the emblem earlier. This is one of the very few pictures we have of my father at the Master Chief rate. So this photo is very precious to me also. But if you look at his chest, you'll see an emblem over top of those ribbons and badges, but that's an EOD crab. That's an EOD crab. And that's the badge that I was telling you about. It's the same in the Navy, the Army, the Air Force, and the Marines. It ties them together. The 2 stars that are on his sleeve designate him as a Master Chief, which is an E9 enlisted rate in the Navy. Only 1.25% of enlisted personnel reach the Master Chief rate. My father made Master Chief in 1970. As you can see, he just had a tremendous career. This is a plaque that sits outside of the EOD Training and Evaluation Unit 2 at Fort Story. And I put this slide in here because I wanted you to see what his peers and his co-workers thought of him. And I just want to read it to you. Explosive Ordnance Disposal Training Evaluation Unit 2 is dedicated to the memory of BMCM Sherman Byrd. Master Chief Byrd graduated from NAV School EOD in Indian Head, Maryland with class 04B58 in July 1958 as the first African-American explosive ordnance disposal technician. He was a pioneer in EOD. He was a pioneer in equality. And he was a trailblazer who set an example for every EOD technician to follow. All EOD technicians who train here honor his memory. approximately 700 EOD technicians go through this training center a year, and they all honor his memory. I think that is so wonderful. This is a historical display of Master Chief Byrd that's in the corridors of the EOD Training Evaluation 2. And then down the hallways, they have various pictures of him also. I would be remiss if I didn't end on this note. The United States Navy and Marine Corps values. First of all, let me give a shout out to the Marine Corps, because they are the ones who developed these core values of honor, courage, and commitment. Let me tell you another story. So, you know, what I was telling you about, you just need all of these people at the table. There are so many meetings in the military. So they having another meeting, y'all. They having another meeting. The Navy calls the Marines together, and they say, okay, we want to take a look at our core values again, because at this time the Navy's core values was tradition, professionalism, and I wouldn't say it was commitment, but I'm gonna have to check on that. It might have been courage. It's one of them C's, but it was different from these three. So the Marines, their core values was honor, courage, and commitment. So they all at this table, all these officers are at this table, and they're brainstorming about what can we change these core values to. Well, as they're brainstorming, the Marines speak up and say, listen, we're sorry that you all don't like your core values, but we like ours. We're not gonna change. Our honor, courage, and commitment is working for us, so we're not gonna change. So the Navy said, if it's working that well for them, I think we'll switch over to theirs. And that's what they did. So they took on the core values of honor, courage, and commitment. So I wanted to end this presentation by telling you some examples of how my father exemplified these three things. For honor, I wanted to share with you how my father honored the United States Navy uniform. When he was in boot camp, he was a 17-year-old boy straight from the country, from the cotton fields. And one thing he did was look down at his feet all the time, because it was interpreted as a challenge of authority if you stared a white person in their face. You know, it was interpreted as disrespectful. So my father was conditioned to looking at his feet. Well, when he got into the Navy and he was in boot camp, his company commander called him outside of his barracks one night. And it's normal for company commanders to take each individual person and give them an assessment of, you know, where they are, where they're going, you know, while they're in boot camp, encourage them. And I hope all of you that are out there that are in this position will make sure you do the same thing. But this company commander took him on the outside. And he said, Byrd, he said, listen, you come to, you muster every day. Your uniform is looking sharp. Your shoes are shined. You do as you're told. But I've got this problem with you looking down at your feet. I know you come from an era of Jim Crow laws, and I know I will never understand what you went through in the South. But let me tell you something. You are wearing a United States Navy uniform. When you have that Navy uniform on, this is how I want you to stand from now on. So he told my dad to position himself toe to toe in front of him, to pull his chin up and look him in the eye to eye, toe to toe. That's where that saying comes from. Eye to eye, toe to toe. Say what you got to say. You don't care who it is, because you can say it in a respectful way of their rate and their rank. You can say it in a respectful way, but it's got to be eye to eye. When his company commander told him that, it was like a weight lifted off my dad. It was freedom for him. And so those of you who knew him know how sharp he was in that uniform. I have my father's service records. They were sent to me by my congressman. And he received a 4.0 so much on his evaluations, it made me research this. It's not something I would normally pay attention to as I'm researching his papers, his history. It wasn't something I normally would notice, but he got a 4.0 so often. Then I said, let me see if I can find out the history behind this. But anyway, he showed honor in the way he wore his uniform. When it comes to courage, do you know my dad took a course that was called shark defense? Can you believe that? He took a course in shark defense. All EOD technicians have to take this course. But how courageous can you get? If you got to learn how to defend yourself against a shark while you're swimming underwater to disarm a bomb. If that's not courageous, I don't know what is. So finally, I'd like to tell you about his commitment. My father was committed to God first. He accepted the Lord Jesus Christ in his life at the age of 9. His mother's father was a preacher in Mississippi. And he took the time to explain to my dad that if he confessed his sins and accept Jesus Christ as his Lord and Savior, believe on the work of the cross, he would be saved. My father, at that tender age of 9, accepted Jesus Christ as his Savior. That offer is still available to each and every one of us. If you have not tried Christ, I encourage you to do so. Try Christ. I accepted the Lord at the age of 19, and I think that because I did, I was able to fulfill this purpose of writing a book about my father. Because what is so interesting, I wasn't interested in shipbuilding and maintenance. I was an arts person. I was interested in writing and museums, that type of thing. But God purposefully took me through a career in the Navy, on ships, in ship maintenance and repair, so that I could better understand what my father went through, what my father did. And for that, I'm so grateful. God has a purpose for each and every one of us. And it's my prayer that we all will align ourselves with that purpose and do it in love. Now we're going to go to the video of the dedication service, the facility dedication service. And then after that, the floor will be open to questions and answers. I want to show one more slide, Emily, before you switch to this.
Okay.
Because I want you all to know that I do not own the rights to the music that's on the upcoming video. Okay, we're ready now, Emily.
Okay, I'm gonna take this off of you and bring it to me. Escape.
Honoring the Navy's first.
Nope, not that one. All right. Share.
beautiful for heroes proved in liberating strife. Who more than self our country loved, and mercy more than life.
Oops, sorry about that.
America, America, may God thy gold refine till all success be nobleness and ever again divine. And you know, when I was in school, we used to sing it something like this. Listen here. Oh, beautiful, far spacious skies, far amber waves of grain, far purple mountain majesties, over the fruited plain. But now wait a minute, I'm talking about America, sweet America. You know, God done shed his grace on thee. He crowned thy good. Yes, he did. Heavy brotherhood from sea to shining sea. You know, I wish I had somebody to help me sing this. America, I love you, America. You see, my God, he done shed his grace on thee, and you ought to love him for it, because he crowned thy good. He told me he would. Every brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Oh Lord, I thank you, Lord.
Right.
The floor is now open for questions.
All right, so let me pull up my chat box here because I've had a few. So I am going to start with May Arvin. Quiet Strong is the first of a trilogy. When is the second coming out?
May, thank you so much for that question. How you doing, girl? May, you know what? My vision is to have a trilogy of books and a trilogy of movies. So this is my vision, to write a book, to have a movie done on the first part of the trilogy, then write the second part and do the movie, and the third part and do the movie. So the book came out in 2018. It's now 2020. I did have a movie deal at one time really in 2017, before the book even came out. But they were not able to get enough funding to move forward with that movie. So I am actively pursuing a movie deal now. And so to answer your question, if I have not sealed the movie deal by the time that this version reaches 3 years, I will go ahead and release the second part. I have been working on it. I've done 90% of the research on it. So that is my plans. If at the 3-year mark, I do not have a movie in place, I will go ahead and release part 2 of the trilogy.
Excellent. From Bob Murray, can you please share a story about that your father told about disposing or disarming explosive ordnance?
Oh, okay. This is one that I shared in the book also. But Bob, listen, he didn't talk to us about EOD or explosive ordnance disposal technician things. My father died in 1971 and I was 13 years old. So at that time, him and my mother had made the decision that they were not going to share with the children because we were young, that he disarmed bombs during the day. But as I was doing my research and everything, the one thing that struck me most about this career field is how many times on a daily basis they're disarming bombs and we as United States citizens never know anything about it. So in the book, I shared about this story where, and this is in his records, you know, I have the paperwork. And matter of fact, everything that I've said to you today, I have the paperwork to back up, you know, from his official records. But, but anyway, so in his paperwork, he received an award for disarming a bomb. An airplane was flying over an area in Mexico, and you know, it just lost a bomb. It lost a bomb. So when these things happen in international waters, it's of utmost urgency that the Navy find these weapons as soon as possible and retrieve them. And so his team was sent out to find the bomb, and they did. But they did all of that and came back home and didn't say a word to anybody. It was like they got to hurry up and find this bomb before anybody finds out about it, you know? So that's what it was. And so, you know, it lends you to think, you know, how many other operations do they do like this, you know? And I hope that answers your question, but I couldn't tell you of a personal one because I was too young when he died. They didn't share it. I didn't know. You know, when we found out my dad was EOD, it was in 2009, May of 2009, when we found out my father was EOD. We always knew he was a deep sea diver. In fact, that's what our family, my mom and dad would share with us. They would say, your dad is a deep sea diver. He's very good at what he does. And that was it. But to me, as a 12, 13-year-old, I was thinking, man, dad goes swimming every day. You know, that's got to be the greatest job in the world, to go swimming every day. So hopefully I answered your question, Bob.
And even if you didn't fully answer Bob's, you answered quite a few of Kurt's, actually. He did, and this is kind of another playing off that, you know, how did your mother deal with the stress, or did you not really pick up on that because you were so young?
Oh, okay. Well, my mother was a wonderful woman, Kurt. She really was. And it brings tears to my eyes. You know, I'm the crybaby of the family. There's 8 of us. And you know, it's a crybaby in every family. Well, that's me. But Kurt, let me share this with you. When I wrote the book, I wanted to make sure I focused on my dad. You know, it wasn't a lot of things about us in there, even though here and there, you know, we talked about the children or we talked about my mother. But you would be surprised at how many people email me and write to me complimenting how strong my mother was. Somehow her strength came through in that book. And I get a lot of emails about that, just complimenting her. But my mother was a strong woman. Kirk, I had no idea my dad was disarming bombs. None. The closest that I can remember of any trouble was on two occasional that something might be different. One was when President Kennedy died, the day President Kennedy was assassinated. When I found out, I was in the driveway and I was crying, and I was saying to myself, you know, I think, let me see, he died in 63, I was born in 57, so I'm 6 or 7 years old, but I'm crying in the driveway, and I said, I sure wish my dad was home, you know? So I was wondering about why he wasn't home. You know, he may have been out on some type of mission or, you know, playing, because, you know, my father protected 4 United States presidents. I didn't mention that in the presentation, but he protected 4 US presidents. So that was the first thing I thought about. Why wasn't Daddy home? And then the second was during the Cuban Missile Crisis. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, my father wasn't home. I remember him having to abruptly leave to go back to the ship. And I remember my mom crying, you know, during that time, and saying, you know, she was fearful that World War III might start. So that's the only 2 things. And I hope that answered your question.
Oh, that's great. So what I'm going to do for a second, because I actually have someone on the phone, it's a 202-531 number. I'm going to unmute them so they can ask the question, because they can't send the text. So I'm going to unmute you, whoever you are, for a moment.
202 is DC, isn't it? Washington, DC?
So hopefully that should work.
Okay.
We're going to just sometimes it takes a second to, I've never done it this way before, so this is a, it's not unmuting yet. Well, I'll come back to you. We'll try again. In worst case scenario, you can email me or Cynthia and ask. We'll come back to that, because I've got a few other questions.
Okay.
From iPad number 5. Has anyone in your family followed in your father's footsteps when it comes to diving?
Oh, you know, I'm gonna take that question as a 2-part question. The first thing I'm gonna answer is, has anyone else followed in my father's footsteps? We have several military people in our family, and several of them are on this Zoom meeting today. My nephew, Thurman Watkins, he's in the Air Force. He's a fire chief in the United States Air Force, and he's an E9. So he's at the top 1% of the enlisted personnel in the Air Force. And what's interesting about being a fire chief, now he didn't know about his grandfather being EOD until 2009 also, but he was already in the military. But as you know, fire chiefs have times in which they train with EOD, because if a bomb does explode, who's gonna come and put it out? It's got to be a fireman. Somewhere is gonna have to come and put it out. So they have sections of training for nuclear disasters, biological disasters, different things that might have fire, not biological, but chemical. So in my opinion, you know, he has followed his grandfather's footsteps. And then my sister Yolanda was an officer in the Coast Guard. And then she eventually retired from the Army. I have another nephew that took the route of ROTC in the Marines, and then served in the Army as a pharmacist. So, and then now, currently, I have a nephew that's a senior chief in the Coast Guard. So I am so proud of all of our family members that are in the military. I forgot one. Simone, I'm looking at your picture. I forgot about my girl.
She messaged me already.
I have a cousin that's in the Navy. She's in which I can't hear her, but I might be saying it wrong.
Let me unmute her for a second.
Simone, what branch of the military is your daughter in?
She's Air Force.
She's in the Air Force. She did ROTC as well. And it was because of Uncle Sherman that she joined the Air Force. She even won a first place essay in high school talking about our family's rich history in the military. Because his legacy has stretched so far in the family, not just with his grandchildren, great-grandchildren, but even his nieces and nephews. So he has made an impact on the lives of many members of the family.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yes, I couldn't forget her. That's my girl. That's my girl. I had the privilege of reading that essay. It was wonderful, wonderfully written, wonderfully written.
Oh, excellent. I did have another question from Nikki Andrews. Can you speak about any of the country government efforts to recognize Sherman Byrd's legacy as part of the American and Black history?
Well, it was just a tremendous honor for them to recognize my father by way of dedicating the training facility in Fort Story. But some other efforts that we are currently doing is before COVID-19, I called it the Master Chief Sherman Byrd Legacy Tour, where I was visiting various ROTC units at the various colleges around the United States, Navy ROTC. I was a part of their leadership what they call it, their leadership lab. They had leadership labs. Some have it on Mondays and Wednesdays, some would have it on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But I would go and speak to our future officers of the Navy about my father's leadership skills and historic contributions. I've been to Duke, Georgia Tech, the HBCUs such as Savannah, Prairie View. I went to Tulane. I went to the U.S. Naval Academy as a guest of the Navigators. And I also went to the University of Maryland, University of Virginia. I've been to about between 25 and 30 colleges thus far. But when the pandemic hit, we stopped those efforts. I also have been to various high schools, speaking to their junior ROTCs. First Coast High School here in Florida. I went to one in Tampa, Florida. And I look forward to doing some virtual presentations with them in the future. Now, another effort we have is that we about 200 people signed a petition to have a ship named after my father, and we sent it to DC. And they recognize that his service, but he has not yet, as thus far, been selected. He has not been selected yet. So we will continue to pursue that also.
Awesome, wonderful to hear. We're getting ready to wrap up. I've had a lot of folks say this was an absolutely wonderful presentation. I've had Eric Denson from Diving with a Purpose, that he loved the book. It makes him proud. We've got Jay Hagler and Vanessa also from Diving with a Purpose.
Wonderful.
This was a great presentation. Everyone has loved it. Kurt, you just keep sending me all the messages and everything, so I'm just gonna have to give you his email to go back and forth.
Please do. Because he has calmed me. I've been looking at his picture on my screen, And he has such a calm demeanor, you know. So thank you, Kurt.
No, that's,
you know,
yeah.
strength is strength. We strengthen one another. We strengthen one another, you know, we really do.
No, but other than that, thank you, Cynthia. And if anyone else does have any questions, I'm sorry I couldn't figure out the phone number one. But send me an email.
My DC listener, please send me an email or text me. You know, my email address is Cynthia Conner 1957@gmail.com. Cynthia Conner 1957@gmail.com.
Okay.
And my business phone number is 904-704-4727. So if you forget any of those, it's in the back of the book, and you can get that information on my website or on Amazon.
Or at the History of Diving Museum in our wonderful museum store.
Yes, that's right. You can order the book from our museum.
So Cynthia, the History of Diving Museum would like to thank you for your presentation. I have a warm heart for the military, and just listening to your dad's adventures and, you know, the things that he went through, I think really entertained all of us. So thank you, and the rest of the family that really helped research and put that together. As a thank you, we would like to make you a member at the History of Diving Museum. You can come here 362 days a year. You can join Kurt, actually. There's several people that are on tonight that are also members at the History of Diving Museum. That membership helps support, you know, our educational outreach, a lot of the videos and things that Emily does, and also our museum in motion and things that we do in schools. So we greatly appreciate our memberships, and we'll be mailing that to you, because unfortunately you couldn't be in person, but on your next trip to Key West to do some more research, we hope that you stop in and, you know, let me know you're coming to town, and we'll do another walkthrough.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. And let me just say that I have been to the History of Diving Museum 4 times. Every time I'm on my way to Key West for a vacation or research, I stop by the History of Diving Museum, because it is so wonderfully laid out.
Thank you.
From the beginning of the diving era all the way to the current times. And they have touchscreen displays and so many hands-on things to do. It's so interesting for adults and children. So I encourage each of you, if you're ever on your way to Key West, stop by Alamorado mile marker 83 and visit with Lisa and the staff at the History of Diving Museum.
Thank you.
All right,
Emily.
All right, without further ado, thank you again, Cynthia. This was wonderful. And then I'm going to say so long and farewell to everyone. And in case you do want to share this, I am going to be putting it onto the museum's YouTube. So it'll be accessible through that, and I will share it on our Facebook as well. So if you want to pass it along, like I said, if anyone has questions, either send them to me and I can pass them on to Cynthia, or you can send them directly to her if you are, you know, family and friends and have her email directly. But without further ado, good night, everyone.
Bye,
and
everybody.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.
All right, family reunion. Bye-bye.
Bye,
Thank you,
everyone.
for joining us tonight.